State inspectors peering into the dark, completely enclosed exit of a vertical water slide loop made a chilling discovery. They found human teeth. Loose, shattered human teeth just sitting right there at the exit. The Cannonball Loop wasn't just your standard water slide. It was literally a physical assault.
Those teeth? Yeah, they belonged to the battered customers of Action Park. This was a New Jersey destination that actually claimed 6 lives between 1980 and 1996. The carnage kicked off shortly after June 28, 1980. That's when Eugene Mulvihill, a former Wall Street stockbroker, bought a failing ski resort and transformed it into a summer venue built entirely on a truly radical, highly dangerous premise.
Mulvihill called this wild idea participatory amusement. You know how most amusement parks back then put you in a seat, right? The Ferris wheel rotated you, the roller coaster carried you. You were totally passive. But Action Park handed total control of the steering, acceleration, and braking straight to the customer. Mulvihill essentially treated human bodies like bumper cars. I mean, think about handing a teenager the keys to a sports car, sticking them on a sheet of ice, and telling them the brakes are just optional. That wasn't some flaw in the business model. That was literally the entire pitch. So when you hand over that much control, the safety guardrails totally vanish. We're talking entire rides operating without safety brakes. Attendance? Frequently missing entirely. You only got a helmet if you specifically begged for one. And when people inevitably got hurt, the park's official stance was this absolute masterpiece of legal gymnastics. They basically said, hey, if you bleed, it's your own fault for not following the instructions. They pointed the finger directly at the rider, completely glossing over the fact that the brakes were missing in the first place. And the park completely masked this absolute brutality behind innocent, thrilling-sounding ride names. Take the Tarzan Swing. It dropped riders into 50-degree underground spring water. Water so freezing cold, it literally induced cardiac shock in customers. Or Roaring Rapids, which had so many exposed bolts that the park actually stationed paramedic crews right at the unloading dock. They were literally suturing up lacerations as people climbed out of the water. It was less of a theme park and honestly more of a battlefield triage center. But the most infamous of all had to be the Alpine Slide, 2,700 feet of concrete and fiberglass track built right into a former ski hill. You rode down in this little cart with a single handbrake. But here's the kicker. The track had 2 side-by-side racing lanes, so naturally, that inherently encouraged everyone to go as fast as humanly possible. And if that brake pad got wet, it didn't work. If the cart ahead of you crushed a stray insect on the track, making the concrete slippery, the brake didn't work. The result was almost always a violent, high-speed crash straight into concrete. But the danger wasn't just scraped skin and broken bones. In 1982, the dark reality of all this unregulated chaos was highlighted tragically at the kayak experience. A 15-year-old boy was actually electrocuted in the artificial river. Why? Because an underwater electrical fan had been left exposed in the water. It faulted and sent a lethal current straight through the entire ride. This level of chaos was just too massive to be contained within the park's gates. In a bizarre twist, Action Park actually bent the local healthcare infrastructure to its will. Wallkill Valley and Newton Memorial Hospitals had to permanently alter their staffing. They kept extra emergency room personnel on duty every single summer weekend just to handle the endless influx of bleeding tourists. The park essentially treated the local hospitals as their own off-site first aid tents. New Jersey state troopers became completely accustomed to this relentless rhythm of sirens, noting multiple ambulance dispatches every single Saturday. Now, state inspectors were constantly at the park, repeatedly ordering rides to be closed down due to glaring safety violations. But Eugene Mulvihill, he had a surprisingly simple workaround. The absolute second those inspectors got in their cars and drove away, he just flipped the switch and turned the rides back on. By the mid-1980s, the body count was getting so high that every single major American insurance carrier outright refused to cover the park. So what do you do when no one on Earth will insure your extraordinarily dangerous business? Well, Mulvihill secretly set up a fake offshore shell insurance company in the Cayman Islands solely to insure himself. He essentially just printed his own safety net out of thin air. But, you know, you really can't outrun gravity forever. In the mid-1980s, a state insurance fraud investigation finally unraveled that Cayman Island shell company. Then, a scathing 1995 New York Times investigation completely cratered park attendance. By 1996, the massive weight of 16 years of accumulated lawsuits and horrific injuries forced the park straight into bankruptcy, and it was sold off. But here is the truly bizarre contradiction of Action Park. Objectively speaking, the place was indefensible. Yet, if you look at best-selling memoirs and documentaries, former employees and patrons look back at their summers there with this deep, fiercely protective affection. They actually cherish their memories right alongside their lifelong physical scars. The danger wasn't a bug in the system, it was the product itself. They weren't just buying a ticket to a ride, they were buying the thrill of surviving it.
Today, the true legacy of this bloody experiment isn't found in some theme park hall of fame. It's taught in business school courses. It's a masterclass in regulatory arbitrage. Eugene Mulvihill's empire isn't remembered for engineering better roller coasters. It's studied as an instruction manual on how to design a product with a staggering human cost and legally insulate yourself so completely that when the state inspectors finally show up at the bottom of the loop, the only thing they can do is sweep up the teeth.